Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Free riders aggravate me, so said Barack Obama in a forthright interview in the latest edition of The Atlantic magazine. The US president, feeling the loosening of the leash, no doubt, let rip. Among the free riders, France and Britain, at least as far as the Libya operation was concerned. Obama said that some were eager to drag the United States into sectarian conflicts that sometimes had little to do with American interests, and that his support of the NATO military intervention in Libya had been a mistake, driven in part by his belief that Britain and France would bear more of the burden of the operation than they did. Right now, the so-called special relationship between the UK and the US doesn't seem quite as special as it did back then.
Alas, I cannot imitate this wonderful American English accent. You ain't seen nothing yet.
You are a very tough act to follow.
But there have been times when the relationship has been bumpier. This time, the bump in the road has been caused by Obama's frustration at Europe's tendency to push the US to act, as in Libya in 2011, and then showing an unwillingness to put any skin in the game. David Cameron, in particular, became distracted by a range of other things, according to Barack Obama. The White House has been backpedaling today. It released a statement saying the president did not mean to be critical of David Cameron and that the US is also to blame for the chaos in Libya. The US-UK conversation always changes in tone depending on who's in office, but this was strong stuff. A president soon to be off the leash, or a new, harder-headed approach to the US's junior partner across the water. Well, joining me now from Stanford University is Nicholas Burns, an Under-Secretary of State under George W. Bush and a former US ambassador to NATO. Good evening, Nicholas Burns. Now, we know that Barack Obama has rowed back, but were you surprised by the tone of his responses in the Atlantic?
Well, I was surprised. I have great respect for President Obama. I think what he was trying to articulate is a sentiment that a lot of Americans in both political parties shared, and that was the defense budget cuts in Prime Minister Cameron's first term and a weakening of the French military at a time when the Arab revolutions were breaking out in 2011 and 12. But I think that to suggest that somehow Britain and France let us down in Libya, I see it in another way. I think the United States should have played a bigger role in the Libya operation in 2011 because there was a clear humanitarian imperative to save the people of Benghazi from Gaddafi and Gaddafi's army. And the fact that the United States took a step back, I thought was a mistake in a NATO operation. We're in this together, and we've always fought with Britain and France. I think we could have done better.
Do you think in a way then that this kind of, I know you do support Barack Obama now, but do you think that in a way this unloading was a kind of defensive mechanism?
Well, it was part of an extraordinary interview he gave to The Atlantic magazine. It's probably the most sophisticated expression, if you will, of his views on the use of power. And he went into great detail about his refusal to act in Syria. So that was the context of these remarks. But my own view is that we, on both sides of the Atlantic, are only as strong as our commitment to each other. And so it's true that the United States accounts for 75% of the defense spending of all the NATO allies. And so to, in President Obama's view, take the United States out of the NATO operation, have it play a secondary role, it just wasn't workable. And so if we're looking to account for the failure in Libya, we should have stayed in Libya, having gone in. We should have tried to help them put their society back together, and neither Europe nor the United States did that.
Do you think, though, we've just done a run through some of the relationships there, but do you think that his relationship with David Cameron is a close one in as much as Barack Obama, do you think, is close to any other world leader?
Well, it is said by many people that President Obama does not have a lot of close relationships with world leaders. My sense, and I'm an outsider, is that they have great respect for each other. that Britain has been a great friend to the United States in many, many ways, and I hope the reverse is true. I hope the British people feel the same way about the United States. I think they tend to work well together. So this particular article came out of the blue. It was surprising for a lot of people. If anything, who should we blame for the problems of the Middle East? We should blame Iran. We should blame the Islamic State. We should blame the jihadi groups that are wreaking havoc, but not blame our greatest ally in the world. And I think that there is a special relationship, and I think Britain is still the closest friend that the United States has.
Nicholas Burns, thank you very much indeed.
I've been getting away with it all